faltering and shuddering and stopping. And the one chance is that at this moment, or in this time, and in these years, people will wonder, not just about this economic crisis, about which I've spoken, possibly too much, but also all of the other things that are going on and have gone on for the last 50 years. The sad truth is that many people have to have a reverse and have to have a bit of pain, basically, to get them to see any sense. All of our people have moaned for 50 years. Moaned in their cups, moaned in the pub, moaned amongst people they know, because there's a certain circle beyond which people are frightened to be politically incorrect, quote unquote. A term that 20 years ago didn't even exist, except amongst extreme left theorists in France, in the United States and elsewhere. Amazing example of something that Trotsky developed at one level, and that the Berkeley and French revolutionaries in the late 1960s developed, that was this big, that was 1% of people would have known what political correctness was in 1978. Now school children know when they've made an incorrect remark. It's an extraordinary example where you can take an idea from the absolute fringes, from the fringes of the fringes, and it can become the mindset of an entire society. Because once you have a mixed-based society, you just have to keep control. That's all it's about. And you have to stop people having certain thoughts that can lead to conflict, because you're in a sort of tone down the anger management situation all the time. In Birmingham, all the political class does is negotiate between the groups so that they won't fight, and that there's a common denominator. I mean, just keep it together. The logic of Basra. But it's not Basra, it's Birmingham. And it's inner Birmingham, and it's Slough, and it's inner London, and it's inner Cardiff, and yes it is, and it's inner Glasgow, and it's Leeds, and it's everywhere. Chapeltown in Leeds, absolutely no different. Moss Side and Rushall in Manchester, absolutely no different. No different at all. And we have been sleepwalking into this for 50 to 60 years. A few politicians, a few eccentric Tories like Alan Clark, a few devastating minds like Enoch Powell mentioned earlier, spoke 40 years ago. No one else said it. They all thought it. They all thought it, but no one else said it. And we've got this extraordinary example where we have sleepwalked into what might be coming. And almost nobody in our political class, except for Thatcher, who made two synthetic speeches that she didn't really entirely believe in order to undercut the national vote in 1979, and that she reneged upon later. Apart from her, nobody in the mainstream at all, she's not supposed to even mention these areas. The fact that the whole country's been demographically transformed is a bit of an issue, isn't it? It's not just a sort of minor thing, which London Borough gets the Olympics or something, whether you think council tax is fair. It's a bit of a issue, isn't it? It's a sort of fundamental, it's an elephant in the room. And yet no one can mention it. And indeed you are removed. You're removed from Cameron's front bench for mentioning it in certain ways. When we've got a Labour minister now called Willis, who's opening his mouth a little bit about immigration. He was hidden away for a week because they didn't want him on Question Time, because they haven't formulated their policy on that. We said, we need to get a grip, Mr. Willis said, on immigration. We need to get a grip. We need to get a grip on Willis, never mind on immigration, don't they? The doors have been not just opened, but slung opened. The sort of nationality's been thrown away in the last 30 to 50 years, and Willis is saying what we need, like Cameron, is a few quotas for elite workers. There's 1 million illegal workers just in the south of England alone. So having a few quotas is not going to do any good at all. The only way in which you can deal with these sorts of problems is to have a new political class. And it's to have a new political class. Diplomates and decisive action. That's what's required. There's a time for talk and there's a time for action. And the time for action is coming. Because if it doesn't, we will either go down in a corporate or popular or civic and national sense with a bang or a whimper. It'll be one or the other. It'll be radical. It won't, for once, be in the middle. In the middle. It will be radical. We'll either stand up and some major things will follow. Or there will be a gradual diminuendo, there will be a gradual decline. People go to Spain, people go to Australia, then they find they don't like it there, then they'll come back, they'll run around the country looking for spaces where they can live. People will increasingly look after their own, and so on. You've seen this very much in the attitude of many middle and upper class people. They've drawn up the drawbridge, they've left the rest of the population. Patriotism's a sort of socialism they can do without, as they conceive it. But the problem is, even for them, these things are coming for them. Everything is going to come for all of us. And this is the problem, particularly with educated people in our society. They've left the bottom, they've left their own population group. They have no concern for them, or very little. They have very little sense of group solidarity. Patriotism's partly been sort of mentally bred out of them. It's a disease. It's something that has to be extirpated. And these ideas are in the minds of most of the people who rule us. Blair's asked, what's Britishness? And Blair says, tolerance. Tolerance and fairness and inclusion and a welcoming cuppa for the incomer. That's not what they said at Ypres. That's not what they said on the Somme. When a bayonet went to some European enemy who ultimately wasn't really our enemy in the fullness of time, as things have worked out, people didn't say, I'm giving you this for tolerance and the values of inclusion. They didn't say that because it's a lie and because it's not true. And it wasn't true for German troopers or Belgian or Austrian or French or ourselves. It's not true. When American napalms, they don't use the term napalm anymore, it's white phosphorus. When they white phosphorus a village in Iraq, they're doing it for tolerance and reasons of equality and to give these people liberality and the chance to vote for their own warlord. That's what they're giving them. But in actual fact, it's a lie. It's a hypocritical lie. When we run an empire, we were more honest about it. We didn't engage in all that fluff and nonsense. But the time to talk about colonisation is when we talk about the reverse colonisation that's gone on for 40 to 50 years. And there's no escape. Not here in parts of rural North Wales or the far-flung west of England or parts of East Anglia which are underpopulated and so on. There'll be 70 million in this country soon. 70 million. Maybe 100 million. You remember those old science fiction films from the 1950s and 60s where you can hardly turn round because there's so many people, you know, there's an elbow in your fist and in your face and this sort of thing. This is what's coming. Go to Oxford Street now, you can't hardly move as all these people are seething. Of every race, of every culture, of every faith, of every kind. All in one scraped stew. The police running around, police, they wear these fluorescent yellow jackets, don't you? But when you want one, you can never get one. And the security officers that come along can't even make an arrest. They can watch you behaving criminally and warn you that you might be arrested. And in actual fact, this is how sort of low we've got. The police are firemen. The police come after it's over and sweep up the glass. They don't really want to get involved particularly. It's dog eat dog, and unlike American cities, we're disarmed. The criminals have weapons, the state has weapons, and we're stood there in the middle as it's all going off. So, the situation is quite dire in many ways, but our people still have political opportunities to express their disinclination to go along with what's being done. They still have that option. It's still there. Yeah. And there is a degree to which, if they will not respond to the forms of chaos that are enveloping this society now, even Cameron says this society is broken. You know, a society that aborts 200,000 a year, where national service doesn't exist and is a dim and distant memory, where youths terrorise city and town centres and people in the older generations are terrified even to confront them, where your children end up speaking like Jamaican gangsters if they go to an inner city comprehensive, where men can marry each other and adopt children, and this sort of thing. We're living in this society where almost every value that was considered as normative before 1960 has been reversed. Being reversed, it's turned on its head. And people have swallowed it a bit, and they've gone along, and there's been a little bit of passive resistance, and they slid a bit further, and so on. We've ended up with something that everyone said could never happen. And that's a left-wing capitalist society. It's very peculiar, but that's what's happened. At the beginning of the 20th century, if you'd have said that, they'd have said, that man's an idiot, you know, get him have a glass of water and calm down a bit, you know. Left-wing capitalist society, but that's what we've got. The values of the old left, equality for all, everyone can come here, men can marry each other, patricians and dirty